We are looking at chapter number 4, Globalization and the Indian Economy. Question answer on globalization and the Indian economy, वैश्वीकरण और भारतीय अर्थव्यवस्था. First is, what do you understand by globalization? Explain in your own words. So globalization in today's world has various things, like it implies various things. It is the process by which the people of the world, they are unified into a single society and they function together. They trade, they work, they talk. This term is also often used to refer to economic globalization, because the economy has pronounced, or the main ingredient of this globalization is economy, that is trade, that is vyapar, export import. So the integration of national economies into the international economy through trade, the foreign direct investment FDIs, capital flows, migration of labor and people, and the spread of technology. What was the reason for putting barriers to foreign trade and foreign investment by the Indian government? Why did it wish to remove these barriers? So barriers to this foreign trade and foreign investment were put by the Indian government after the independence, just after the independence, to protect the domestic producers, because India just came out of a very, this Angrez or British rule. Now these Indians, these producers, they want, or they are in still the process of producing or making themselves to produce. So to protect these domestic producers from foreign competition, because if the foreign competition comes, this foreign countries and foreign economy was already developed at that time. Most of the countries were developed. So to protect the domestic producers from foreign competition, especially when industries had just come up or begun to come up in the 1950s and 1960s. So at this time, the competition from imports would have been a death blow, a very, you can say, a catastrophe to growing industry of India. Therefore, India allowed imports only for essential, very essential goods, nothing else. Then later in the 1990s, specifically if I talk about 1991, the government now wished to remove these barriers, these economic barriers, these all barriers on foreign trade and foreign investment, because now the government felt that the domestic producers were ready to compete with foreign industries. Government felt that foreign competition would in fact improve the quality of goods produced by the Indian industries, and this decision was supported by the international organization and various countries, welcomed by various countries. How would flexibility in labor laws help companies? So flexibility in labor laws, that is, there are certain labor laws which defines the time of the working, the overtime, and what should be paid, how should be paid, the working conditions. All this comes under the labor laws. There has to be a flexibility in labor laws if some other company is coming and they wish to take the laborers for their work. So flexibility in labor laws will help companies to be competitive and progressive. If we ease up or loosen up on labor laws, company heads can negotiate wages and they can terminate also the employment depending on the market condition. That is, if the market condition is not good, it is slow down, then they can terminate the employment also. And this will lead to an increase in companies' competitiveness in the market. What are the various ways in which MNCs set up control production in other countries? So MNCs stands for multinational corporations or multinational companies. So the various ways in which this MNCs set up, first of all establish, set up, then control, niyantran, and production, that is vinirman, in other countries are by buying out domestic companies. This is the best way, and this is the most common way, just to buy the domestic companies and making the latter work, that is the domestic companies work for them. Sometimes these MNCs buy mass produce of domestic industries and then sell it under their own brand name at a much higher rates or foreign countries. So these MNCs, they look towards developing nations to set up trade, because in these places there are certain things which are costing less, like the labor, the cost of manufacturing and the resources. They are much less than the countries from where they are actually working or where they are based on. Why do developed countries want developing countries to liberalize their trade and investment? What do you think should be, or should the developing countries demand in return? So developed countries, they want developing countries to liberalize their trade and investment. Why? The reason is, then only the MNCs or the multinational corporations belonging to these developed countries, they can come in these developed countries and they can set up factories in less expensive developing nations, and thereby they will have great profits. They will increase their profits with lower manufacturing cost and the same sale price. So you can say that, in my opinion, the developing countries should demand in return the same manner of protection of domestic producers against the competition from the imports. Also, charges should be levied on these MNCs looking to set base in developing nations, and also they should demand from WTO and other authorities that the developed countries should also loosen up their laws, their economic barriers. That is, they also liberalize the trade and investment, because the way they want the developing countries to liberalize, developed countries should also liberalize, so that the developing country, the people from developing country or the manufacturers from developing countries can go to the developed country and then they can do their work, or they can produce, or they can invest. The impact of globalization has not been uniform. Explain this statement. So this impact of globalization, though it seems all good, but it has not been uniform. The truth of this statement can be verified if we observe that the impact of MNCs on the domestic producers and the industrial working class, what has happened to them. The small producers from MSME, and these production of batteries, capacitors, plastic toys, tires, dairy products, vegetable oils, they have been hit hard by the competition the domestic producers are facing, by competition with the cheaper imports. Also, the workers are now employed flexibly. That is, in the face of growing competition, they can be employed and they can be fired at any time. So this has reduced the job security also. So efforts are now on in order to make the globalization fair, justified, justice for all, since it has become a worldwide phenomenon. How has liberalization of trade and investment policies helped the globalization process? So this liberalization, that is easing up of economic barriers. So liberalization of trade and investment policies has helped the globalization process by making this foreign trade, that is international trade, and foreign investment easier. Earlier, there were several developing countries, they had placed barriers and restrictions on the imports and the investment from abroad or from the developed countries to protect their home production or domestic production. But to improve the quality of domestic goods, these countries have removed these barriers. Therefore, the liberalization has actually led to a further spread of globalization, because now the businesses are allowed to make their own decisions on imports and exports, and the involvement of the government or going to the government is less. So this has led to deeper integration of national economies into one combined or conglomerate whole. How does foreign trade lead to integration of markets across countries? Explain with an example other than those given in the text. So foreign trade leads to integration of markets across different countries by the process of trading, of course, imports and exports. So producers can make available their goods in market beyond domestic ones via exports. Likewise, with the same example, the buyers have more choices, more options on account of imports from other countries. So this is how India, or you can say the markets of different countries, are integrated through foreign trade. So India is now integrated with whole world. For instance, the Japanese electronic items, they are imported to India, and they have proved to be a tough competition for less technologically advanced companies here. So they have to improve in order to compete with these Japanese technologies. Globalization will continue in future. Can you imagine what the world would be like 20 years from now? Give reasons for your answer. So globalization will continue in the future because this is an ever growing and ever increasing and a continuous and gradual process, right? So 20 years from now, the world will be more globally connected and integrated into one international economy if this process continues on a fair and equitable and justified manner or basis. So trade and capital flows will increase alongside the mobility of labor also, that is the migration. So this will occur because liberalization will get augmented or combined, and then MNCs will converge with other companies producing the same goods. Supposing you find two people arguing. One is saying globalization has hurt our country's development. The other is telling globalization is helping India develop. How would you respond to these arguments or these organizations? So globalization has hurt our country's development because first you can give argument for both of them. Firstly, it has led to annihilation, or you can say stopping, of small producers who face very strong or stiff competition from the cheaper imports. Secondly, workers have no longer job security. That is, workers no longer have job security and they are employed flexibly. Sometimes they are working, sometimes because of the economic condition of the market, they may not be working. Globalization is helping India develop on account of the following reasons. So this is the argument for. So firstly, the competition it entails had led to rise in the quality of products in the market. Second, it has made available a wide variety of goods in the market, that is, the buyers have now options to choose from. Now imported goods are easily available alongside the domestic products. Indian buyers, this is the fill in the blank, so I'll just read it and then I'll just fill it up. Indian buyers have a greater choice of goods that they did 2 decades back. This is closely associated with the process of, here it will come, globalization. Markets in India are selling goods produced in many other countries. This means there is increasing trade. Here it is globalization with other countries. Moreover, the rising number of brands that we see in the market might be produced by MNCs in India. So MNCs are investing in India because of cheaper production cost. While consumers have more choices in the market, the effect of rising demand and purchasing power has meant greater competition among the producers. So this is what in the bold you have to fill it up. Choose the most appropriate options. The past 2 decades of globalization has seen rapid development in. So what will be the answer? The answer is goods, services and investment between countries. Goods, services and investments. The most common route for investment by MNCs in countries around the world is to, the best is to buy. So the answer is buy existing local companies and then use their resources and their network. Third one is globalization has led to improvement in living conditions of. Actually, all the people know, the people in the developed countries, the workers in the developing countries, none of the above. So you can answer none of the above. But I have an argument that people in the developed countries, they are benefited. So the B can be answered, but because it is not being very much specified in the text, so we'll go with this D, none of the above. We have now the multiple choice questions. So Cargill Foods is the largest producers of which of the following in India? So the answer is edible oil, cooking oil, eating oil. WTO, World Trade Organization, was started as the initiative of which one of the following group of countries? And the answer is developed countries. Which one of the following organization lays stress on liberalization of foreign trade and foreign investment? This is WTO, World Trade Organization. Which one of the following is not a characteristics of SEZ, Special Economic Zone? The answer is they do not have to pay taxes for long period. They have to pay tax for not 5 years, but after that they have to pay tax. All are true. Which one of the following Indian industries has been hit hard by globalization? The answer is toy making. We have seen the example of toy coming from China, and people are going after these toys. They are buying it. Which one of the following type of countries have been more benefited from globalization? The answer is developed countries. So now developed countries you can answer because the options are given like this. Removing barriers or restrictions set by the government is called as liberalization. Investment made by MNCs are termed as, it is foreign investment. What is the process of rapid integration or interconnection between countries called? The answer is globalization. It is globalization. Which one of the following is an example of trade barrier? Trade barrier. It is tax on imports. Removal of barriers set by the government is known as, we have already seen this, so it is liberalization. Globalization does not involve which one of the following? You have to answer does not, right? So it is increased taxes on imports. So increased taxes of imports does not involve the globalization, so it is the answer. Which of the following is not a feature of MNC, multinational company, and it employs labor only from its own country, right? It employs the labor from the you can say the company where it is being established. So the local people are being employed. Liberalization involves which one of the following? The answer is removal of trade barriers. The past 2 decades of globalization has seen rapid movements in. The answer is goods, services and people between countries. So goods, services and investment between countries, this also is true, but now this good services and people, this is quite true because it is given in the text also. The most common route for investment by MNCs in country around the world is to buy existing local companies. Globalization has led to improvement in living conditions. It is of workers in the developing countries, right? Globalization, because the people in the developed countries, the living conditions is already good. So the answer will be C. Globalization by connecting countries shall result in, it is greater competition among producers. Company that owns or controls production in more than one nation. So what is this? The answer is multinational companies or multinational corporations. Investment made by MNCs is called, it is foreign investment. D. Benefit to the local company of joint production with MNCs is, and the answer is, see there are 4 options, so we'll choose 2 of them, right? So it is money from MNCs for additional investment, this is also true. Moral and social support, no, all of them no. Latest technology for production, so 1 and 3. So D is the answer. Cargill Food, a very large American MNCs, has bought over small Indian companies like Parak Foods. Cargill is now the largest producer of edible oil in India with a capacity to make how much pouches daily? 5 million. Examples of industries where production is carried out by large number of small producers around the world, and the answer is garments, foods, sports items, so all of them. 24 is D. Ford Motors came to India in which year did they come? It's 1995. B. Effect of Chinese toys on India toy makers is, it is they are suffering losses. Indian toy makers, they are suffering losses. Rapid integration or interconnection between countries is known as, it is globalization. Post 50 years have seen several improvement in, what is the answer? It's transportation technology, information technology, communication technology, that is ICT, information and communication technology. So answer is all of them. Tax on imports is an example of trade barriers. Tax on imports is a trade barrier. Removing barriers or restrictions set by the government is known as, the answer is liberalization. Around which year need for removing barriers on foreign trade and foreign investment is in India was felt? It is 1991 when the liberalization took place. Dash is one such organization whose aim is to liberalize international trade, and it is WTO, World Trade Organization. Till 2006, how many members were there in WTO? And the answer is 150. Companies who set up production units in the special economic zones do not have to pay taxes for an initial period of 5 years. Industries where small manufacturers have been hit hard due to competition, and the answer is batteries, tires, dairy farms, all of them. Number of workers that small industries in India employ, and it is 20 million. To get large orders, Indian exporters try hard to cut their own cost by, it is cutting the labor cost. To achieve the goal of fair globalization, major role can be played by, the answer is people and government. So the answer would be 1 and 2. So it is C. 38 is C. It refers to the globalization which creates opportunities for all and ensures that its benefits are better shared, and it is called as fair globalization, justified globalization, fair globalization, allowing the private sector to set up more and more of such industries as were previously reserved for public sector, and it is privatization. So these are the keys for the question we just covered. You may recheck it. So this is all about the question and answer of this topic. The questions which we saw earlier, that is in the text questions and the multiple choice question. So if there is any difference, then you must take the answer of the multiple choice questions. Okay, MCQ is correct.